Hey everyone, welcome to the Ornithology and Mammalogy collection. We're going to talk about sea otters, and we actually have the world's largest collection of southern sea otter specimens in the US, and that is over 1,500 catalog specimens in the collection. So here we are in the collection row where the sea otters are located. We have dogs over here and wolves, and then we have walruses. So here's a young walrus specimen. You can see the tusk. This one came from Alaska. And then next to those, we move into the pinnipeds, some of the phocids. So the northern elephant seals are here, and then the harbor seals are here. And then we have our southern sea otter collection. Well, most of our specimens are not articulated because we're mostly for research behind the scenes here. So this is an entire sea otter skeleton in a box. So that's every bone from the skeleton. And it's used by researchers for various studies. So one example is the Transbay Terminal. When they were digging it here in San Francisco, they found some bones that they thought might be sea otter bones. So they say they found a scapula. This is a sea otter scapula. If an archaeologist found a scapula that they thought was a sea otter, they want to make sure that it's a sea otter. So they would come to the collection with their specimen and they would pull out scapula from different species to compare them. Now, each bone has to be numbered with the catalog number. That way things don't get mixed up and they all get back into the correct box. So that was one study that happened in the collection. This otter, let me put down the box for a second. This one actually is a shark bite case. It's not going to work very well. So you can see right where at the tip of my finger, with my mask in the background right there, that is actually a shark tooth that's embedded in the skull of this southern sea otter. So this is a male. It's probably a young one. It's not very big. You can see its teeth. We can actually age them by their teeth. This tiny little premolar is pulled out and given to California Department of Fishing and Wildlife so that they can actually cut it in half and they can read the layers or count the layers of bone in there. Not bone, dentin and enamel that are in there, and that tells them how old the sea otter is. But this one you can see the cranium and the lower mandible come right apart as they should. Sea otters have 1 million hairs per square inch. They have no fat layer to keep them warm, unlike the pinnipeds like the northern elephant seals. And both northern elephant seals and southern sea otters went through a bottleneck in the early 1900s. Sea otters, of course, like you learned earlier, because of the fur trade for their fur, elephant seals were also heavily hunted for their fat. And so a large elephant seal would give a lot of muscle and blubber to the hunters at the time. And in fact, the elephant seal population has really rebounded since. So this is a northern elephant seal. This is a subadult male. You can see those are called the nasal turbinates inside. Everybody always asks me about those. We have those in our nose too. It helps to clean our breath as it goes in and out with the membrane and the hairs that are on top of them. But the northern elephant seals have a very different breeding strategy than southern sea otters. Lillian mentioned rookeries. So northern elephant seals, a male will have a group of females on his rookery that he breeds with. So they can reproduce many, many, many young. And the maternal care for a young elephant seal is about 3 months. The mother nurses it for 3 months. It gets really fat, turns into what we call a weaner, and they're weaned. So she stops nursing them, and then they're left on their own to go out into the ocean. So the time that the adults have to invest in their young is very short. Whereas for southern sea otters, a mother can nurse a pup for 6 to 9 months. So she spends a long time nursing that pup. And she also spends a long time teaching that pup how to feed. Elephant seal weaners have to just go out and learn how to feed on their own. But southern sea otters will actually teach their pups how to feed. And they have lots of choices when it comes to food. Sea otters have to eat between 20 and 30% of their body weight each day because their metabolism is so high. And they typically have several items that they really specialize in, like their favorite foods. And if a southern sea otter specializes in sea urchins, you know that they're helping the kelp forest by eating the sea urchins. But the sea urchins can also have an effect on the southern sea otters when they're eating them. And what happens sometimes, not always, but if a southern sea otter pup learns from its mother to specialize in sea urchins, their skull and sometimes their teeth and sometimes even the rest of their skeleton turns a slight tinge of purple. Can you guys see this skull here? You can see right at the base of the teeth, maybe it's easier to see, is purple, and this one here is very, very white. If that's not clear enough, maybe Christina can put up some photos that we have. But look at those teeth and the difference in the color of the teeth with the white one. So there's a purple sea otter skull picture that was taken by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. That one was necropsied, so that's why the skull is cut in the back there. So this purple sea otter skull, remember that skeleton, I was able to pull the mandible separate from the skull. This one actually has osteoarthritis of the temporal mandibular joint here. So I cannot separate the mandible. And there were researchers from UC Davis Veterinary College who came here to the collection. They looked at over 1,000 of our sea otter specimens, and they were able to look at dental pathologies in sea otters. And they found that about 74% of the sea otters in our collection showed some form of dental pathology. In most cases, it was periodontitis or gum disease, and that represented itself as teeth that had fallen out or receding bone around the tooth. But then they also found that 4% of the otters had this osteoarthritis of the temporal mandibular joints. And that was something that they didn't know about sea otters until that study was done.